The mystery of the love that is divinity is with you all. Thanks be to all that is holy.
May the mystery in whom we live and move and have our being be with you.
Alpha and Omega, we neither live in the past or the unfolding future of our mysterious evolutionary journey. We only know that we must be awake and prepared. Let us awaken to the infinite array of created pizzazz, the sparkle of water lapping earthly shores, dazzling hues of colors of insects, reptiles, and birds, the wondrous diversity of all humans, and the interconnectedness woven into the cosmos. Let us also awaken the cry of the earth as she reaches out to us in pain, the weeping of families and friends, refugees and immigrants, mourning the loved ones, the silent tears of children wandering the scorched earth of their homes. Then let us look at life and death and choose.
A reading from Luke 12, verses 32 to 40. Reading from the Inclusive Bible. Fear not, little flock, for it has pleased your Abba to give you the kingdom. Sell what you own and give the money to poor people. Make purses for yourselves that don't wear out, treasures that won't fail you in heaven that thieves can't steal and moths can't destroy. For wherever your treasure is, that is where your heart will be. Be dressed and ready, and keep your lamps lit. Be like the household staff awaiting the owner's return from a wedding, so that when the owner arrives and knocks, you will open the door without delay. It will go well with those staff members whom the owner finds wide awake upon returning. I tell you the absolute truth. The owner will put on an apron, seat them at table, and proceed to wait on them. Should the owner happen to come at midnight or before sunrise and find them prepared, it will go well with them. Understand this. No homeowner who knew when a thief was coming would have let the thief break in. So be on guard. The promised one will come when least expected.
Are we awake yet? Look closely at the present you are constructing. It should look like the future you are dreaming. Alice Walker.
Wake up and smell the roses, the peonies, the jasmine, the mint. Slow down. Look around you. What do you see, smell, taste, feel, touch? Wake up and smell the coffee. Get moving. You'll be late for work. What are you missing in all this rush? I remember working as an educational consultant, waking early, checking my schedule, rushing out the door, driving impatiently to get to my first appointment, wanting to yell at all those slowpokes driving the speed limit. How dare they? In all of this, I loved my work. I loved the research into new and adaptive teaching methods, writing curriculum, facilitating workshops, meeting teachers and students. My life was full, or so I thought. Then one evening, when I was driving home, a shaft of light caught my eye. It was autumn, and trees were in their wholesome glory, shimmering gold, regal crimsons, glowing rusts, and the tail end of greens. The sun was setting, and a silence so deep enthralled me, and I had to pull over to see this miracle of hues and textures. I sat for some time in this shimmering veil. I couldn't think, and I didn't want to move. Finally, I drove home slowly, keeping the speed limit and wondering how many of these wondrous moments had I missed because I was asleep. I admit I spent many weeks after that, watching, looking, marveling at cloud formations, the silver light on creeks, and the endless colors of the setting sun. Then I confess that work took over and I was back in the whirlwind again. Finally, my body said, enough. Angina pain forced me to slow down, and a little voice said, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? I didn't know, but I took early retirement, studied theology and eco-spirituality, and began a long process of waking up. There are several lines in this morning's reading that drew my attention. Fear not, little flock. Really? Fear not? Have you read the news lately? There's a lot to be fearful about today. But I think perhaps Jesus might be saying, wake up. There is no sky god intervening in our worldly affairs. And are you waiting for my return to make a difference? I'm not coming back the way you think I am. The world seems to be careening toward disaster. War in Ukraine, water shortages and drought, food shortages and starvation, then the disastrous earthquake in Afghanistan in the midst of their overwhelming challenges, the pushback against women and the urge to control, racism, human trafficking. I know I want to go back to that autumn evening and sink into peaceful oblivion. But that isn't what is being asked of any of us today. So what are we going to do about this? Another wake-up call. Perhaps a story will illustrate our predicament. In his autobiography, Report to Greco, Nikos Kazantzakis tells how a young man went to visit a famous monk in search of the love of God and hope of salvation. He describes their encounter as follows. Working up the courage, I entered the cave and proceeded toward the voice. The ascetic was curled up on the ground. He had raised his head, and I was able, in the half-light, to make out his face as it gleamed in the depths of unutterable beatitude. I didn't know what to say, where to begin. Finally, I gathered up courage. Do you still wrestle with the devil, Father Makarios? I asked him. Not any longer, my child. I have grown old, and he has grown old with me. He doesn't have the strength. I wrestle with God now. With God, I exclaimed in astonishment. And you hope to win? I hope to lose, my child. My bones remain with me still, and they continue to resist. Yours is a hard life, Father. I too want to be saved, Is there no other way? More agreeable? Asked the ascetic, smiling compassionately. More human, Father. One, only one. What is it? Ascent, to climb a series of steps, from the full stomach to hunger, from the slaked throat to thirst, from joy to suffering. God sits at the summit of hunger, thirst, and suffering. The devil sits at the summit of the comfortable life. Choose. I am still young. The world is nice. I have time. Reaching out with the 5 bones of his hand, he touched my knee and pushed me. Wake up, my child. Wake up before death wakes you up. Today, science is telling us that it has taken billions of years for each of us and all that is on Earth and the cosmos to develop, evolve. Our ancestors lived in and with creation. They looked up to the skies and read the stars. They looked to earth and read the soil, winds, rain, and sun. Technology has burst upon us and is moving at lightning speed. Yesterday, our phones hung on the wall, while today we carry a computer in a small cell phone device. Anything we want to know is at our fingertips. Anything we need can be purchased online and delivered, sometimes the same day. But all of this has separated human beings from the cosmos, from nature, and ultimately from God. Many people exist from day to day, rising in the morning, working and sleeping. Sometimes a robotic mechanism seems to empower us. Relatives and friends die, sometimes too young. There are homeless men, women, and children everywhere. Political policies that we know will destroy our environment or our health care are touted as an answer to financial shortages. The elderly are sometimes abandoned in long-term care facilities. Truth and reconciliation with Indigenous people can lead us to better relationships, or they can be only words mouthed by politicians, especially when we need the resources on their territorial lands. We go on with our lives until we hit a wall. Wake up. How do we accept this wonderful technology and still relate to the one we have called God? Mystery. I remember being so caught up in work that I neglected the needs of friends. The work was preparing spirituality workshops for various groups of people, so you would think I'd be very aware of friends. It wasn't until a friend was diagnosed with ALS that I suddenly realized we were going to lose this beautiful woman. 3 of us banded together to make sure she would always have companionship. Her daughters were there and became a second family. Sometimes I look back on those days and am grateful for the time we spent together. But at the same time, I experience a deep sadness that it took this crisis to change the way I spent my time. In her book, 10 Evenings with God, Ilia Delio says, in some ways, the sources of our success today, wealth, degrees, status, material things, are obstacles to our being alive in God. The very things we achieve through hard work force us to become autonomous, self-sufficient, ultimately cut off from others and even from our inner selves. So how do we accept this technology? I am suggesting that we become aware, alive to God in our world, aware that the entire process of evolution brought each of us into this world at this time with our gifts. This is our time. In her poem, The Summer Day, Mary Oliver writes about spending the day walking in fields and watching grasshoppers. She asks, "Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last, and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Yes, life is precious. Being aware of diversity, intricacy, and beauty around us in the environment can create a deep contemplative spirit, which in turn may motivate a person to action on behalf of the earth. Wrestling with God means setting aside our comforts and becoming active. For some, joining protests and marches might be uncomfortable, but love of the earth drives the action. For others, writing letters, phoning political leaders, or joining a planning group moves us out of our comfort zone. Concern for the environment is just one of many issues today. Our gifts, talents, and skills point the way. Being aware of the hungry, thirsty, and suffering, not only aware, but ready to wade into the fray and bring justice to a faltering world. Those are hard words to hear, but along with them I hear, fear not. In the Gospel attributed to Luke, we see that Jesus has outlined a way for us to stay connected to God, to each other, and to creation. Luke writes, "Sell what you own and give the money to poorer people. Make purses for yourselves that don't wear out, treasures that won't fail you in heaven, that thieves can't steal and moths can't destroy. For wherever your treasure is, that's where your heart will be." We want to be alive, alive to the reality in our world, but we also want our comforts. What is my treasure? Where is my treasure? If we treasure our relationship to the one we call mystery, we become spiritually aware. We know we can, as St. Augustine says, quiet our restless hearts. Resting in mystery prepares us for the joys and sufferings our world lays before us. This connection to God allows us to make choices, to become more attuned to the trajectory our world is on, as well as to be astounded by the innate goodness in people around the world. As we become more aware, we will stop fighting our inner desires for comfort and continue our wrestling with God, hoping we lose. If we are driven, we will wear out. If we look only at the suffering, we will lose hope. This too is wrestling with God. Take time for joy, for healing. To be alive, we must become as children. Do you remember lying in the grass, pointing at dragons, bears, and castles in the clouds? Do you remember the wild abandon of riding a bike along country roads, imagining great adventures? Those memories lie dormant within us, seeds of life, asking for rich soil in which to grow simplicity, truth, awareness, the ability to be alive again. We are asleep, prisoners of outmoded thinking, of being dead to the needs around us. We need desperately to wake up, get dressed, and be ready. We don't know when we'll be asked to stand up and be counted. We only know we must be ready. Christopher Fry, in his poem, The Sleep of Prisoners, writes, "Thank God our time is now, when wrongs come up to face us everywhere, never to take leave until we take the longest stride of soul we ever took." As we become more aware, more awake, we see the wrongs facing us. It is now or never that we step into that deep unknown, the soul-size affairs that frighten and allure us. This is the childhood dream we dreamed about. That sense of wonder and awe in our world can propel us to acts of compassion and love we didn't know we were capable of until this moment, this sacred moment. Fry suggests that The enterprise is exploration into God. And he asks, where are you making for? It takes so many thousand years to wake, but will you wake, for pity's sake? We don't have another 1,000 years to waken. Wake up to wonder, awe, compassion, love, hunger, thirst, suffering. Childlike, we move forward into mystery, with mystery, never alone. God, who dwells in the future, is calling us forward. Can we hear? We have brought ourselves to the brink of disaster by devastating our earth. We have not listened to our spiritual ancestors, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, who all taught one value: love. That word, love, has been overused these days. We love everything. But do we love? Are we aware of what is happening to our neighbors, our community? Do we see instances where a loving smile, a hand on the shoulder, a response to a racist comment could change a person's outlook, provide support, courage, and hope? We need to wake up to both the suffering and the joys, the ugliness of war and the work of our peacemakers, the ravages of earth, and the many hopeful projects to restore what can be restored. We need to wake up to real love. Buddhist activist and teacher Joanna Macy invites us to meditate on our intimate coexistence. You know, your lives are as intricately interwoven as nerve cells in the mind of a great being. Out of that vast net you cannot fall. No stupidity or failure or cowardice can ever sever you from that living web, for that is what you are. Rest in that knowing. Rest in the great peace. Out of it we can act. We can dare anything, and let every encounter be a homecoming to our true nature. Go, be love in this world.
The prayer attributed to Jesus. Interpretation based on the Syriac Aramaic. O cosmic brother of all radiance and vibration, soften the ground of our being and carve us a space where your presence can abide. Fill us with your creativity so that we may be empowered to bear the fruit of your mission. Let each of our actions bear fruit in accordance with our desire. Endow us with the wisdom to produce and share what each being needs to grow and flourish. Untie the tangled threads that bind us, as we release others from the entanglement of past mistakes. Do not let us be seduced by that which would divert us from our true purpose, but illuminate the opportunities of the present moment. For you are the ground and fruitful vision, the birth power and fulfillment, as all is gathered and made whole once again. Amen.